Welcome Internet to psychoanalytic cogitation, and today we're going to be thinking about the concept of novelty in a psychoanalytic light. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this for the longest of times is because I find it so interesting that we are often driven to something new, something that's out of our experience. Because when we're thinking about novelty, it's something that we don't have, we haven't experienced, and we wish to experience. So it's something that I find very, very interesting. And often in psychoanalysis, we don't talk too much about it, as we are often centered on the past rather than the present or the future, because novelty is intertwined both with present and with future. But I think it has its roots in the past, and I'm going to explain my thought process. So basically, what novelty is very simply something that's new. Easy. And I think that within our human experience and our human condition, that novelty is something that's looked upon, even seen, in a much deeper way, like it's a main force and motivation in our behavior, I think, the seeking of novelty. Now, the fundamental question is why? Why do we seek novelty? And here I think there are many explanations, but I'll focus on a few. The first, and perhaps the most Lacanian one, would be the idea of desire. We desire something new in order to fulfill our emptiness, meaning that once I integrate the novelty, I'll be complete, and I'll be happy because I'm feeling full of something new. The newness is in a way going to compensate for who I am, or bring me up in a fundamental way. Of course, here it's a bit of an illusion, as novelty wears off and you never complete by something else or someone else. People don't complete you per se, but in the novelty there's that little illusion, and some might say even a little delusion, in the idea that someone might, or something might just be that good, that great, that's gonna fundamentally change your core being. And of course, the excitement that comes with it is non-negligible, because basically that's the whole point. It excites the psyche into something. It creates forces of creativity, motivation, and will, which are fundamental to all human enterprise in a way, and that's very, very interesting. So we have that concept of desire, something that we desire in novelty, but it implies that we don't have it yet. So it's a always going forward mechanism of trying to always reach out to something that's not there. So that's the first big one, is the question of desire. But I think it goes beyond that, or perhaps even below that, because when we think about novelty is something that in a way kind of contradicts our psychoanalytic understanding of our lives. Because when we take Freud's core tenets, there is this idea that in our minds we are looking for something ancient, something old, something that was there and no longer is. And that's something that I think is going to be very interesting with the idea of novelty. So in a way, it seems to be completely contradict everything that psychoanalysis is known for. However, I think that novelty is a re-triggering of previous events. Most notably, I think, the very first years of life, in which a child, when you think about it, is constantly developing new skills, understanding new sins, getting new stuff, and being able to use new objects, people, concepts, ideas, ways of thinking, and so on and so forth. So the newness is at the very beginning of life. That pull to discover everything new is something that's so core, so at the core of our being, that we don't even realize it. But novelty is a spark that sparks everything. And it's something that we, in a way, are constantly doing and constantly triggered by, because it's something that's been there from the very beginning. Because when we think about it, mother, father, they at some point were novel to us, and our relationship with them was completely new. Our relationships with ourselves was completely new. Even birth is a completely new experience in the womb. So novelty has been there from the start. But it poses the very interesting question of, why doesn't that stop? Why that at some point we are not filled with novelty, happy, content? And that's where we could go back to desire. But I don't necessarily think it's just desire. Because what I think happens is that in novelty there is an illusion, an ideal, that there's always going to be something there that might make you better, more perfect, more capable. Like when you were a child and seeing adults walk, that one day it will happen to you. That parents having children, or you having brothers and sisters, that there's something that's going to be there, and that one day you're going to be a parent too, and so on and so forth. And there's so many things that are just created by the fact that new things are happening in the life of the infant, that the infant integrates that novelty as an ideal, as something that there's just that little thing out of reach, but it's there and I might grasp it. And there is, I think, something at the very core of novelty, which is very well explained by Joan Rivière, is that basically there is so much frustration with objects at every level and in every phase of life, that there's a lot of frustration. And that frustration also pushes us to seek novelty. And it also explains, in a way, why people get fed up with each other in all forms of relationship, be it colleagues, friendships, love affairs, marriages, and so on and so forth. People get fed up because the novelty and the illusion, and perhaps a bit of the delusion of completedness, falls apart. That this person, this individual, this object, this animal is not going to fulfill your needs. Not fundamentally, not at the core. They might fulfill some of the needs, alleviating some of the frustration, but not all. And that not all, that lack, that manque, as Lacan would say, that missingness, is something that's going to be always at the center of new sins, of new novelty. But it's also something, I think, that fundamental experience of frustration and novelty compensating, at least for a little bit, this frustration element, is not, I think, just the only sin. I think that at our core, because we are constantly evolving in a world of change, that change and that novelty is also something that we aspire to. We aspire to change. I don't think humans aspire to be the same or to be constant in a profound, fundamental way. I think humans want a change, and that change is expressed through novelty. However, novelty is perhaps the more superficial, because even though it pushes us, if it's not thought about, if it's not digested, if it remains an illusion, it will not create stability. It will create, on the contrary, instability, in which the person is always going to seek another element, another object, another relationship, another animal to compensate for something, always thinking that the next one is going to be the right one, bringing them in a cycle of suffering, because the novelty will always wear off and the frustrations will always come back. And that's what I think Buddhism, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means on the subject. Buddhism is about that desire is suffering, that novelty is, in a way, suffering if it's not contained, if it's not controlled, if it's just put there as a carrot to fulfill all the needs of the individual. And I think that that's something that in our capitalist world has been very well understood, that humans can be, through novelty, forced to consume, buy, and just get the wheels spinning. And I think that's a mechanism that in our world is used and abused for economic and power structures and power dynamics and economic dynamics. But at the very core, I think that there is something of this novelty that pushes us to change, to become something new, that through the object, it's us that is transformed and changed. And it also explains why there's always something to be done, to be made, to be created, to be thought of. It's because that missingness is there, and that's something that I find very interesting. And therefore I think that within the whole point of novelty is trying and extract us from our condition and make us grow. But that growth can be very different from individual to individual, and from what one expects or even fantasizes about the novelty. But it's so fundamentally interesting, and it also explains why, in a way, we are looking for the old in the new, because that's also something that's brought up with novelty, that we're looking, for example, with love relationships, we are looking, when someone is new, to rekindle the relationship we had with the love object, but we're rekindling it in a way that we feel is better, more adapted, more lovable, and less frustrating, that the frustrations are going to go away completely. And that's what love is. It's the illusion that frustration will be gone with the right object, which it will not. But it's that fundamental core illusion. And it also explains why, in a way, we leave the Oedipal stage of development, that it goes beyond that also because of the frustration we feel with the first objects. Because if there was no frustrations, there would be no need for novelty, in a way. And novelty is created by the frustrations and by our will to grow. And that I find very interesting. And I'm very, very interested in the idea of novelty and how it can shine in a way and be represented by psychoanalysis, even though it seems very contrary to everything psychoanalysis brought to the table. But I think that the both can, be combined to create a new understanding. And that's what I tried to do in this video. So I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.